Okay, so apparently while I was away in the hospital, they did an update on Instagram and I couldn't find the go live button like anywhere. So I'm trying to go live on Facebook at the same time, and that is proving to be a bit challenging also. So give me a minute. Hi, Michelle. Give me a couple seconds. I'm hoping that both of these work. They need to stop doing updates because apparently I'm not tech savvy enough to be able to catch up with the updates. I could not figure out where the go live button was in Instagram, which is a little embarrassing. But all right, it looks like I'm live on both Facebook and Instagram. So hi everybody. It feels so good to be back, to be looking a little bit more like myself and to be feeling human again. So just a quick update before we kind of dive into this week's topic, because I really want to talk about vulnerability and humility, which, like I said, we're going to kind of walk through Awakening Blackout Girl. And so this is chapter 5, but just a quick kind of update since it's been a couple weeks and I have not done Self-Care Sundays live because I've been really directing all that self-care to myself because I needed it. As you guys know, I went through that whole process of having that diagnosis and then needing to have a radical surgery, and all of that went well. That happened. Everything went well. I was sent home a day after the surgery and everything was looking good. And I was resting and I was being a good patient and I was taking care of myself, and I was surrounded by support and unconditional love, which was just beautiful. So if you were a part of that, just thank you for everything. Again, my gratitude is so huge right now for all of the people that showed up for me in ways that I could never have conceived. And then I got to like day 5 and, I wasn't getting out of bed. I was being smart. I was staying in bed. I was laying down. Because of my recovery though, I don't take pain medication outside of a hospital setting. And I really didn't need it. It was discomfort, but it wasn't extreme pain. So I was managing it with Aleve and Tylenol and over-the-counter stuff. And then day 5 came and I started to have extreme pain and some signs that started to indicate that I might have an infection. And so I was calling the on-call surgeon, I was calling my doctor, and they ordered an antibiotic. And unfortunately, though, it was too late. And so literally on Halloween, I remember going into the bathroom for the 8 millionth time because I was so sick. And I looked in the mirror and I literally looked like death. Like I looked like I had Halloween makeup on and I didn't. And that was the moment that I looked at my wife and I said, something's not right. And again, this really gets back to trusting yourself and knowing your body and knowing when you need to ask for help. Probably should have done it 2 days prior to that, but I wasn't sure. And I was trying to manage my symptoms as best as I could. I could have saved myself probably some serious anguish, but the doctor didn't tell me to go to the emergency room. He just kept giving me other tips. So I ended up back in the hospital on Halloween, and I had a massive infection. If you know anything about white blood counts, mine was almost at 20, and so I had a significant infection. So I was in the hospital for 3.5 days, longer than the actual surgery. And it was brutal. It was incredibly horrible and really set me back. So I got released on November 3rd and was able to go back home. And slowly each day, I have begun to feel progressively better. And so I've seen my surgeon now twice since that time. I am healing really well. My incisions are healing. All the stitches are out, which is awesome. That just happened. And then I was given permission to slowly start integrating activity. As you guys know, physical activity is just incredibly important for me. So I was able to get on my bike twice now, yesterday and today, which brought me to today's topic. All of this has brought me to today's topic, and that is humility. And, knowing when to just kind of allow yourself to be vulnerable and be humble. And this has all taught me so much about humility and about acceptance and about just being okay with not being okay. And so I wanted to, for any of you if you haven't gotten this book yet, this is my newest book, Awakening Blackout Girl, which unfortunately I haven't really been able to do much with because literally I was in my doctor's office getting my diagnosis the day that this book was released. So I have not been able to give it the love and the attention that it deserves. So I want to talk about, I'm going to read actually a passage from chapter 5, and this is on page 81. because I think it's really important. And I posted something about it today. So I'm just going to read a little bit. Again, this is from Awakening Blackout Girl. And I'm going to talk about it a little bit. And then if you have any questions or any feedback, I would love to hear that. So there is nothing worse than someone who thinks the world begins and ends with them. There is no humility when ego is present and active. Many folks assume that humility must involve humiliation. That's not the case. Humility is the process of stepping away from your ego and realizing that you are not in charge. It does not mean that you are weak. It does not mean you cannot be assertive. It means you understand your place in the world and that you appreciate equality and boundaries as necessary to create a life for yourself that is helpful and healing. Access to humility can often be a huge barrier for people in recovery. When we aren't used to being open and honest, it's easy to become arrogant and push away anyone asking us to be humble. It's easy for us to convince ourselves that we are better than this, that we don't need a sponsor or a therapist or family members that love us or friends who want to push us to be better because we're different than all of them, aren't we? They just don't understand what we've been through, right? Sound familiar? I've had these thoughts, but I've realized that my ego-driven thinking usually leads only to more pain and suffering for myself and anyone near me. My anger rises up to defend my ego. It guards my heart, but it's really just protecting me from vulnerability and humility. My ego immediately thinks that to be humble and vulnerable must mean that I'm going to be hurt, that I will be exposed, and that I will be humiliated. We use this false sense of pride and protection to avoid being open, to avoid being wounded, to avoid moving forward into something that could be perceived as a risk. Herein lies the mistake. If we don't try, how will we ever know? If we don't open ourselves up to something new, how can we ever make forward progress? How will we ever change ourselves for the better? I often struggle with what seems to be this constant battle between war and peace within myself. Sometimes it seems like it's programmed into my very cells to respond from a place where I am wicked in wit and savage in tongue. And when you think about it, it makes sense. It's easier to lash out at someone or something than it is to try to get you to change and surrender into that softness. I've been practicing this vulnerability thing for a really long time, and defensiveness and anger still try to creep in like old friends. What recovery has taught me is that these are moments when I have a choice. It is a choice for me to walk on fire rather than float on water. It is a choice to embrace stability and grace when I encourage the vulnerable side and allow the light in. When we feel these hard, dark, defensive parts of us rising up, we always have the ability to pause, take a beat, and then decide how to respond. So I go on a little bit more to talk about what that's like as a survivor of sexual violence, but I use this quote that has become one of my most favorite quotes in recovery, and that is, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our freedom and our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our happiness. So I talk a lot about that, a lot when I talk about meditation and the importance of kind of getting still. Because we do have a choice every day. We have a choice in how we address anything in our lives. It's really the only thing that we actually have full control over is our choice, our reaction to whatever is happening around us, right? We can't really control outcomes so much. We can't control what happens to us, but we can harness the power to control how we react to those things and then how that plays out in our lives. And nothing has been more relevant for me than what I've just gone through. Right? In everything that I'm experiencing right now, in having to surrender to something bigger than myself, surrendering into self-care, and being humble with the fact that I'm human, period. And so when I got on the bike yesterday, it was so funny, like my bike shows metrics, and that's usually the barometer for how well you're doing, right? And it's also how you compare yourself to others. It's the whole competition thing. My metrics weren't working. And I thought it was super universally hilarious because I was like, oh, this is the universe's way of telling me, no, just ride. Just move your legs. The metrics don't matter because they don't. Right now, for me, it's about taking it really slow and moving one step at a time back into who I am going to be after all of this. Because I'm not going to be the same person I was prior to all this. If I am, then I've missed a huge piece of this process. I've missed a massive lesson. I really do think my lesson here was that life is telling me I need to slow down. And life is telling me that I have been working too hard. And I have far too much stress in my life. And that stress is starting to manifest itself in my body. And it's making me sick. And this was a warning. It was like a warning shot. And I'm going to listen to it. Because oftentimes these messages come to us. And when we ignore them, when we let our ego push them aside, and when we're not humble and we don't accept it, well, then that message comes back to us, but usually it comes back in a much worse way, right? I don't want this message to come back. I want to move forward, and I want to be humble in the fact that I'm not a superhero, and I can't do everything, and I can't encompass the amount of stress that I have been allowing to enter into my life. And so I'm not. I am taking the time to heal. I'm still off of work. I'm doing modified work. I kind of go in, I check on emails, I do the stuff that I need to do, try to tap into some meetings that I absolutely have to be at. And other than that, I'm resting. I'm resting and I'm relaxing. I took a bubble bath, and I'm just really leaning into self-care. And that, again, requires humility. So I just wanted to jump on. I wanted to come back. Again, if you are reading Awakening Blackout Girl, if any of what I just read to you speaks to you, there's an exercise and a mantra in here in this chapter. Reach out to me. Send me a private message. Put a comment here if you're comfortable. Let me know what this book is doing for you. If anything, let me know how you are receiving the meditations and the exercises, if they're helping. And then we'll come back next week and we'll talk. I do plan on being back, and one step at a time. Hopefully no more setbacks. One exciting thing that did happen this week, and I'm picking up my keys because this is where I put them, is that I did celebrate 23 years of continuous recovery. So I'm really proud of that. That's my medallion. And I put it on my keys because it serves as a daily reminder. My recovery is my single most important thing in my life. If I don't have my recovery, I have nothing. My life would be shit, period. End of story. And so I honor not just that date that I got clean and sober, but I honor it every single day I wake up, because I know that this is a gift. And it's a gift that requires me to show up. And it's a gift that requires my humility. It requires my vulnerability. Because if I let my ego take control and I think for a second that I am immune from the disease of addiction, we got problems. And so, humble. I'm humbled. I am grateful. I am truly blessed. And I think I'll end it there. So thank you for joining. And I will see you guys next week. Have a great week. Be gentle with yourself. Try to practice humility and vulnerability where you can. And then let me know how it goes for you. Reach out to me. Let me know. All right? Good to see you guys. Take care.